Ali and Therese from ChristchurchNZ to start your presentation for the report.
Thank
Fantastic.
you. Kia ora koutou. I think you all know me now, Therese Arsenault, Chair of ChristchurchNZ. And I'm delighted to be here today. I think this is our first time in the new year in front of council.
Yes, doing this.
So we can say Happy New Year. And from a board perspective, I'd like to note that we've started the year at pace, I would say. We welcomed our new 3 independent directors to the board, and we look forward to onboarding our new council directors when the process is complete. I think it's poignant to recognize that today is the anniversary of the quake, and also to recognize that a great deal of hardship in the North Island as a result of the cyclone, and that as a community we can really empathize and hopefully help in terms of what they're going through in some ways. So on the positive side, though, hopefully you will all agree with me that the city is rocking. It's really exciting to walk down Cashel Mall and to be bumping into people on a regular basis. So we're feeling really positive about the start of the year. And on that note, I'll hand over to Ali, who will walk you through our half-year results.
Thank you, Therese, and thank you for having us today. So I've brought with me today Martin Cudd, who some of you may already know. Martin is our GM for Innovation and Business Growth. And Tracy Wilson, who has been our acting GM of Destination and Attraction, while Lauren Heafy's been on parental leave. Lauren's actually coming back to work in the next couple of weeks. So I just want to take this opportunity to publicly acknowledge the work that Tracy's done on behalf of the city during her time with us. In particular, all the work she's done on Sail GP, and she'll be seeing that through. The cruise season, the work on the city narrative and destination management plans, and can all the while continuing to deliver outstanding outcomes with our business and major events portfolio. So thank you, Tracy. It's been a pleasure. So before I get into the actual results from the first half of the year, just 2 slides for context, so they're really quick. Firstly, a reminder of our remit, just because the more we say it, the more it hopefully kind of makes sense in my head and hopefully in yours too. So we're the city's economic development agency, and we're tasked by you, the council, to deliver sustainable economic growth for our city. So what would success look like for us? Our framework, which some of you may recognise from the Statement of Intent, defines success as delivering improvements to Christchurch City's workforce, productivity, attractiveness and livability. And secondly, I just wanted to very briefly do one slide on the economic situation. And despite falling consumer confidence in response to high inflation and interest rate rises, and we're obviously expecting another one of those potentially in the next few days, most of the key economic indicators suggest that our economy remains pretty robust. We've got very low unemployment, high export values, and as Therese mentioned, international visitors returning. I'm sure you will have noticed the city has that real vibrancy, especially on cruise days, which actually are most days between the October and April season. And it's just really great to have people back in our city in numbers. If you walk around listening to them, there is just great feedback as well. It's a great game to just wander around and listen to the great things that people are saying about our city. So moving on to our performance in the last 6 months. Reminder of our funding, 12 million, or just over 12 million of the ChristchurchNZ funding for this financial year comes from third parties. The majority of that is from central government, and it's focused on COVID recovery. And that industry support generally comes to an end this year. 43% of our funding in the current year is from third parties, and that amplifies the funding that you provide as council. And as you can see, we're well on track with our key performance indicators at the half-year point. Just to note, the targets here are for the full year, so it is really worth noting in particular that bottom one, the value of investment into Christchurch, that's attributable to our work. We've already exceeded that target, and we're not 6 months in on the numbers here. We will share our top-line ROI based on the 2 measures we used last year of GDP and investment into the city at the end of the year. We haven't included it here, as some of the things that go into those measures are only analysed at year end. But as you can see, we're really on track to hit or exceed most of our KPIs. And our levels of service are also on track, as agreed in the long-term plan. The only 2 that we're not on track with are 2 that we've actively chosen not to chase. And that's because they conflict with the strategic work we're doing around the destination management plan and city narrative. We don't want to prepare a lot of collateral that will become defunct if we then introduce the new city narrative and DMP. And then this slide just shows some of our achievements in the last 6 months in a little more detail. And it's worth remembering that our return on investment is about much more than those two sort of top line numbers that I talked about when we first came to present to you in November of GDP and investment. I'm really thrilled with the two deep partnerships we continue to build with Mana Whenua through SailGP and Ngāti Wheki and Whitiora Ngāi Tuhuriri. And the work we're doing around business and investment attraction is really starting to deliver some exciting and significant leads, which could have a really long-term impact on the economic well-being of the city. It takes time, but it's really worth spending the time investing in there. So there's just a snapshot of what we've achieved. So as I did at our AGM at the end of last year, I thought probably the easiest way to talk about the first 6 months of the year for us was to highlight some of the best things we've delivered in the first half of the year. This slide you'll be familiar with. It shows how Christchurch NZ is structured to deliver our very wide-ranging and diverse portfolio of work. And the real meat of the sandwich is in the middle there, the innovation, business and growth, urban development and destination and attraction. So let's start with the innovation and business growth team, which seek to grow the wealth and prosperity of our people by facilitating innovation, helping companies to grow, fostering sectors of global competitive advantage and attracting business, investment and commercial initiatives that are good for Christchurch. So as I've already shared with you, the Christchurch ecosystem innovation ecosystem is really humming. In the 2022 Global Startup Index, Christchurch moved up 165 places to become the 228th best city for startups in the world, ahead of Wellington. It's a really fantastic result, and it's one that we want to really interrogate, understand, and make sure we continue on that journey. It's also worth mentioning that, aided by ongoing advocacy, funding and support from Christchurch NZ, the Ministry of Awesome at ARA, Te Pukanga, recently won significant Callaghan innovation funding. Before this, Christchurch received just 3% of central government funding allocation for startups. So it's fantastic that our advocacy and tenacity with the Ministry of Awesome has really paid off and seen that increase. We're also seeing incubator graduate companies successfully raising capital, and that's been headlined by the 2-year-old Christchurch-based startup Partly, which some of you may have heard of. They just had the largest ever Series A valuation by a New Zealand company of 37 million, so it's really starting to turn into significant outcomes. I also want to talk a little bit about the Power Up Skills Initiative. This was an award-winning program aimed to activate the approximately 20,000 underemployed and underutilised women in the Canterbury workforce in response to the ongoing skills crisis we're facing. And the purpose was to inform women about job opportunities, particularly in the region's growth sectors, to inspire women to search for or upskill or reskill into those areas and connect them with support services and employees. And the campaign included the delivery of 3 women in tech industry-facing events with attendance from 31 tech businesses and 126 women, which resulted in multiple employment outcomes. It included a 1 full-day seminar for skilled migrant women to build job readiness and connect them with employees, 2 stakeholder events with over 70 participants to bring together the women employment support ecosystem, a pilot for a series of diversity, equity and inclusion workshops, and a digital campaign which resulted in almost 35,000 social engagements, 27,000 page views and an average time of 3.5 minutes on the website. It's something we're really proud of and something I wanted to share with you today. And then I just wanted to touch on Screen Canterbury. So the Screen Canterbury grants program, funded by council, has started really delivering economic benefit to the city. 2 feature films have just finished shooting, Te Moto and Head South, as well as 1 short film. And it's provided around 90 jobs and delivered a minimum spend in Canterbury of 2.8 million. And we currently have a really strong pipeline of 4 feature films and 2 documentaries scheduled to shoot this calendar year. So let's move on to urban development, Christchurch NZ's newest function. In simple terms, urban development is the holistic and intentional development of urban areas, and it consists of all activities that enable or promote urban transformation and catalyse economic growth. So let's start a little bit with the heart of the city. These are the three areas that we're really focusing as a team. So after we completed baseline analysis in the cultural heart of the city area, a series of projects are being scoped to address those challenges and opportunities as per our role as an intervention agency. These include evening, nighttime destination development through lighting, projection and illumination, as well as a place management approach to contents and maintenance. Support was provided to a number of initiatives to bring life and activity to the central city with partners including Scape, Life in Vacant Spaces, Turanga Gap Filler, Watch This Space and Moana Var. New Brighton, you may have seen the article in the paper this morning about the exciting plans for New Brighton, and I was out there on Monday. It was fantastic to go out and spend some time with the developers out there. In the last 6 months, there has been really exciting progress across all aspects of the regeneration project, including community, residential and commercial. So this new master developer that is emerging are really keen to partner on development plans for the area, and I'm just really excited to see what's going to happen here. It really does feel like we've got all the stars aligning there, so watch this space. And Sydenham, work is nearing completion on a high-level proposed framework for the long-term transformation of the Sydenham area, and that work will support and inform Council's draft proposals for intensification in this area, signalled in the proposed Plan Change 14, and it will form the basis for stakeholder discussions later in the year. Destination and attraction. This is the part of our business that focuses on delivering amazing business and major events. It focuses on visitor attraction and international education. And again, I'm not going to talk about international education, but I hope you've seen the fantastic article in the paper today about students at the University of Canterbury, which is just great to see. So let's start a little bit by talking about the All Blacks. So after a 6-year gap, the All Blacks returned to Christchurch to take on Argentina at Orange Theory Stadium in late August 22. And the key data analytics showed that the event generated $2.1 million of visitor expenditure in Christchurch. The benefit to cost ratio for Christchurch was 1 to 21. So for every dollar spent, $1.21 was earned. Sorry, 1.21. So for every dollar spent, we got $1.21 back. 20,285 people attended the event, and 9,200 visitors were attracted to Christchurch for the match, which generated almost 10,000 visitor nights. And in addition, it's just worth mentioning that many hospitality businesses in Addington recorded significant jumps in revenue. Electronic card transactions showed the value of retail spending there was up 33% on the average August weekend in 2022. And you could say that despite the All Blacks' loss to Argentina, Christchurch really was the winner on the night. Good cheesy pun. So, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about cruise. I'm going to talk about cruise twice, but I want to talk about it here, particularly in relation to our volunteer programme. So the return of cruise to a new cruise terminal after an 11-year hiatus and in the absence of an eyesight meant that in excess of 50 cruise champion volunteers were recruited and trained to welcome and assist the 177,000 cruise passengers estimated to visit Otatahi this year. And I'm sure you'll have seen them around the city. They're really visible on cruise days, which are most days, as I mentioned, throughout the season. The Cruise Champion programme has stimulated resident pride and appreciation from local businesses who've shown their gratitude through hosting of functions and extending free of charge experiences to the champions. They are a wonderful group of people, and it's really created a community of volunteers who are keen to continue to work alongside CNZ beyond this season. We're also getting great feedback from cruise passengers about just how wonderful it is as an experience. Early indications in this period are that cruise has had a really positive impact on visitor experience, and cruise visitor spend has been strong, but we will come back to you and tell you more about that when the season is over and we've done a full analysis. And then the events ecosystem, an external review of both the major event strategy and implementation plan and business event benefits and opportunities was completed by experts Daylight. These have been really important inputs into recommendations to Council on that broader events ecosystem plan, and it really will give us a great platform to ensure best practice and maximisation of our ever-growing infrastructure, and that's really starting to come to a good conclusion. We'll have stuff to update you on soon. So moving on to marketing, brand and communications, everything we do as an organisation sits under the lens of a consistent city narrative and storytelling approach. It's crucial and a very visible part of what we do. And in the last 6 months, we've got a long way in our city narrative project. So phase 1 of the 3-phase city identity and destination management plan work has been completed. The first phase, as you know, included extensive community and visitor surveys, stakeholder interviews and workshops, and a benchmarking analysis of Christchurch. The narrative has been widely consulted and it was endorsed by Council in December. And phase 2, which is the creative platform for our city identity, is in development at the moment through Q3, and we're using a local agency consortium to help deliver that. On show, our spring campaign had previously been delivered under the Bloom brand, which was originally launched in 2019, but heavily disrupted by COVID for 20 and 21. And we'd had mixed results from Bloom, so this year we took the opportunity to reposition the campaign, and On Show was born. And the aim of On Show was to bring together attractions, destinations, fashion, racing, gigs, sport, and the beauty of spring under one banner, celebrating Christchurch and its unique vibrancy during the spring season. It's the first time we'd really tried doing destination marketing and event marketing together, and it was very successful. And then, as I said, I'd mention cruise again. I just wanted to particularly talk about our marketing support for cruise because it is worth a mention. So the first day of the cruise season was the biggest media day of 2022 for ChristchurchNZ, and it resulted in 55 stories or broadcast pieces. And these had the potential to reach 34 million people with an advertising value equivalency of around $312,000. So it really shows you the value of that PR team that we've got in place. And it was a really, really great day of coverage, so we're really proud of that. And then finally, our shared services and economic insights team is the backbone of the work we do. We couldn't do what we do without them. And they support us all with mostly non-customer facing but really crucial work that help us to be successful. They really are our unsung heroes. And just 2 things I wanted to talk about here. Oh, you missed me talking about New Brighton. So the first was shared services and economic insights. So we updated you on the vision, goals and direction of the economic development strategy back in November. Since then, our team's undergone a lot of consultation, and that's continuing with a broader round over the next 2 months. And that is really starting to evolve and simplify. And we're doing the best we can to make sure that we keep feeding that in so that we can align as much as possible with the strategic work that you are doing. And a final comment on our financial result for the year. We currently have a small budget underspend as we manage some timing differences for the work we're delivering. And the Kickstarter funding programme, which was one of those central government COVID recovery packages, which was to support tourism businesses in Kaikoura and Mackenzie, that's now finished. It had pretty strict criteria for support and not all of it was able to be allocated. So as per contract requirements, we have to return, sadly, that unused funding to MB. So that's it from us. So a quick run through our first 6 months. So I'm going to leave it there and throw open to questions that hopefully Martin and Tracy will answer for us.
Yeah, no, great. Oh, thank you. And I just, reading in the paper that Christchurch is the cool place to be when you wake up in the morning and check your phone. It's great. So thanks for all of that, Ellie. Aaron, we'll have Aaron first.
Yeah, I just got a few things I want to raise. So another great report. So thank you very much. Because we, as elected members, get asked questions about what you guys do, and we have to justify that spend. And some people are critical of it. So it would be good, like when you come in and do the presentation, because you're an economic development agency, have some graphs of where our various industries have grown, not necessarily just because of you guys, but where they are, because sometimes there's stuff that you guys are doing that isn't directly, but it does have a flow-on effect. So where Christchurch and Canterbury are growing at times and where we've gone flat, I think would be really beneficial to see, because some of our industries are really booming. That would be a good one. And then with the All Blacks benefit model, that is a $210 spend per person, which is incredibly low. I think there's stuff that you guys aren't putting in, and Andre and I were just, we're talking about it before while you were presenting, because we can multitask, we're like that. We're both quite feminine. And we think it could be better sold that if we had a truer number, because time you put in your travel and your food. I think locals nearly spend that much going to a rugby game.
It's definitely conservative. So if can I answer the first question? I'm going to ask Tracy to comment on the second. If you want to come down, Tracy, yeah. So just to comment on the first one, I think that's really fair, and we can take that away as an action. The other thing I would say is if you look on our website every quarter or even every month, we produce economic insights reports, and they will depend on what data's coming out, but they are up to date. I can send the link, I'm more than happy to, and you can just get that information at your fingertips at any time that will show you what's going up and down. So there is quite a lot of information available, but I'll take an action for
I think
the
in
next
these
report.
reports, because this is a public forum. And,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and just on the All Black one.
Yeah. As we've shared with you, we like to use an independent analysis done by Fresh Info, who are the industry standard in New Zealand. So they are the ones that prepare that report independently. And that median, to give you an idea, sits just marginally above the median for all other major events that they compare in New Zealand. So yes, it is conservative, but it is, I think, a fair basis because we're actually comparing to a subset of all of New Zealand. So when we want to, look at every opportunity, and we do pre-event evaluation beforehand as well, and it is a really important basis to decide, do we get a good enough return on investment? So when we've given you $1.21, I think, for all of you to look at when we do things in the future, we've shared with Sale GP, that's at $1.20 that we're forecasting, and we are hoping that'll come above. I think it's a good analysis and basis for you to all have in your minds.
Right, okay. Then, thank you. And then you had the port numbers coming through, like with the cruise ships, but we don't mention the airport much. And then also as we go forward, it would be good to see the numbers going through the airport who are locals just travelling, visitors who stop in Christchurch and do something, their average time spent, because in the past that's always been a low number. So it's always been a target of our development agencies, tourism agencies, to grow that, even expanding it by hours versus days makes a big difference. And then how many are skipping through, especially when we have the big debates around things like tariffs and that coming up. It's good to be well informed.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we actually produce a tourism dashboard which has visitation through the airport on it that's available publicly every month. Just to give you an idea, international arrivals in the airport were up 52% in October. So it's coming back strongly, but as you would appreciate, the airline capacity is a big issue. But we do produce those numbers, and maybe if that's something that's of interest, we could consider sharing some of that as well.
Yeah, and the Airbus A380 arrives again on
the
26th
Emirates are coming back.
Yep.
Which is cool. And then finally, a new term that I was thinking of when I was looking at your stuff there of a program you could look into is urban tourism, where we grow locals spending money locally, because if you're going to be a tourist wherever, if you do it locally, that money stays in our economy, whereas your spend is not spent in another city or overseas. So doing something new around that. So I'll just throw the inspiration to you. I can see your face, Ellie. You're kind of reading that and
No, I like it.
Take away.
I think we're actually in the process of doing the destination management plan, and that's exactly the kind of thing that we need to think about. Is where is our biggest return going to be from where we focus, and what kind of attractions do we need to make sure we've got in place, and amenities and all the things in place to make sure that the people we attract are really getting the experience that we promised them. So I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Kelly.
Thanks for that report. Absolutely fascinating. I'm fascinated by the city champions, the volunteers. I think that's just an absolute genius move. Can you tell me where that came from? I mean, whose idea that was?
Yeah, I give a big shout out to our head of tourism, Kath Lowe, who's currently in Australia meeting with trade, promoting the city. So Kath had worked up in the Bay of Plenty and seen some other programs, and so she was keen to give it a go, and so she dreamt it up. But I must say, as a city, it is our collective support. So with the training that we did for that in the library, and on that day when we had our first call out, if you're interested, come along, and we had all of the different providers come along and give them updates. And when we were sitting in that room, and the pride that these people have in the city, and I must say, whilst we say they are city champions, when we have cruise ships sometimes cancel with the weather, they still come in, many of them. It gives a real purpose in their day, and nothing. It's one of the things I'm most proud of, Kelly, that we've put in place. I would also just comment, if you might have seen some comments about the eyesight as well, because as you know, that we haven't been running that since COVID. And these champions are that temporary eyesight, because there is a proposed information centre being put into the Grand, which is unfortunately being delayed with their build. So as always, an intervention agency, we make a call where we should spend our money. So we wanted to review this season, because we also know that behaviours change around what people want. The destination management plan, who are the people we want to attract? How would they get their information? So we thought it was really important to learn this season. There's also a review of eyesight by Tourism New Zealand. So there's a number of reasons why we're reviewing.
Do you have plans to extend it? I mean, because what I love about it is that connection that people have with that visitor experience, where they come in and are treated like they're welcome into the city, and they're given facts, and by people who are mature and have an appreciation for the city, and with the history and all the opportunities for our guests. Have you thought about expanding that? Having people in New Brighton, having people at the airport greeting people as they kind of come off the plane.
Yeah, well, even with events, these big events, that the volunteers have actually said they're really keen to look at that. You're right, for big things that happen at the airport, they are very keen to continue, and we will do a full review at the end of the season.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Tyrone, can we make the questions get a bit quicker, because we're running out of time? Sorry.
I'm allowed to thank them though, aren't I?
Yeah.
Surely. Thank you for all the work that you do. I really appreciate how engaged you've been, particularly around cruise ships. And Tracy in particular is often answers my emails at like all sorts of crazy times. So I appreciate that. So thank you very much. So just on the concept of regenerative tourism, you'll probably know where I'm going with this. So can we talk a little bit about the sort of Christchurch NZ's approach to a regenerative model, and obviously with cruise ships where economic development intersects with sustainability, and often not always in the way that we want. Can we sort of talk about sort of how Christchurch NZ will approach, towards pushing Christchurch towards a regenerative tourism model?
I might just let Ali comment on the economic development aspiration first, because that is the overarching piece.
Yeah, and then you talk specifically about that. So, as you know, as part of the economic development strategy for the city, we're looking at moving towards net positive or regenerative, and that's going to take a long time. That's multi-generational. And it is a staged approach. We've got to do it in a way where we have that vision. If we don't have that vision, then we're never going to get there. But we also recognise that there are a lot of things that economically are very important to the city that are currently not regenerative. So that is the overarching framework that this will sit in underneath. And the destination management plan, I think it would be extremely unlikely that it wouldn't have an angle around regenerative tourism. I think it's really important. How strong that will be, we don't know. But I think it's to fit in with our overall economic development strategy, it needs to kind of be under that umbrella. So do you want to talk a little bit about that specifically?
Yeah, so throughout New Zealand, as you would know, MB have funded us to do this work, and actually that is the framework for New Zealand to be regenerative, to have any of our visitors to giving back more than they've taken. So that is a fundamental foundation of what we look at. And we've just run workshops recently with all of the different regions that cover this, and there is no doubt that, Tyrone, as you know, with Banks Peninsula, there's a very strong community feeling about that. It is interesting, though, because we would also note, the comparison that someone might make, several thousand arriving on a cruise ship. If we can get the sustainability that's happening in the cruise industry and the focus they've got, obviously on airlines, if you bring that same number in, that's a lot of aeroplanes. So there is a balance to be made there, and the airport is obviously investing in that as well. But it is a fundamental in the plan, and we will very much respond to the community and their reflection of that in the plan.
I'm going to have to duck away. I've run out of another board meeting to come, so if you don't
Thanks for
mind,
coming.
Thanks, Therese.
and the team can answer all your questions, I'm sure.
So
I appreciate that.
we've
and
got
thank you.
Yanni next, and we have a hard close at 12:15, and we've got Transwaste coming up. So we'll have Yanni, if you can answer one question. If you've got any more, send them through to Office of the CE, and same to anybody else. But Yanni, go ahead.
Thank you. Just in regards to the New Brighton Regen project, in terms of Seaview residential, are any of those houses affordable, and have they been through any sort of urban design assessment?
So I honestly can't answer that question for you, Yanni, but we can take that away and we will. I'll ask Kath and her team. I don't want to give you the wrong information, so I'd rather the experts answered that.
I just think it'd be really good. I'd appreciate just getting a memo back on the whole purpose of the project around affordability and urban design and what was considered and what the outcomes are. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, we'll have to leave it till so can you send through a message?
We will absolutely pick them up. Send them
Just
through.
because we
more than
have
happy.
really little time before the memorial. So thanks. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your presentation. It was brilliant. Great. We've got Transwaste Canterbury, the annual report. So, we have a mover and Sarah had indicated. Have we got a seconder? Pauline is seconder. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Cool. Great. Now we have Transwaste here, the annual report. So we've got Gil Cox and Jeremy Parker. Yep. Great. Do you want to go ahead with your